and welcome to my video. I'm Rinsanityart, and today I'm going to be talking about my line art process and then talking about how I go about designing an original character and the things that give me inspiration. So just doing the line art on this piece took me about an hour and 8 minutes. I was unable to get a little timer on there, which I know some people suggested. In the future, maybe. So doing the line art for this drawing, I started with the eyes. That's something I normally do because I enjoy doing the eyes first, and that's the only real reason to do it that way. Well, for me anyway. From there, I move on to the face and the hair, and then the body, and then the details. I feel like I'm better at line art traditionally, but for me, line art digitally is a lot cleaner somehow. Most of that involves me just fiddling around with the stabilizer settings until I feel like it feels right when I use it. As I mentioned earlier, I do prefer to do line art traditionally, but some of the things that I love about digital art, it's a little bit more forgiving, well, a lot more forgiving, because you can do Control-Z or Command-Z or whatever undo button it is on your computer. Because I have that undo option, I feel less pressured to get it right the first time, so I do a lot of sketching and then undoing, sketching and undoing until I get it exactly how I like. You may notice me fiddling around with the different pens and the different settings for a bit, just because I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do this one and the best tool for the job. In this video I'm using Krita, which I was using in the last video as well if you were not reading the description or haven't come to my channel before. They have a variety of preloaded brush packs on there, but you can also go onto their website and download brushes that have been made by other creators. And since it's an open source software made for artists by artists, a lot of the brushes are common brushes that you would use for like textures, line art, digital painting, and so on. I will probably touch more on those in a later video, and probably a lot more when I do an actual proper digital painting instead of a digital illustration. And I guess the difference between those two is a digital painting would be a more realistic painterly style, for me anyway, and then the illustration is more like illustrative. So it's got that kind of like anime look, and I am very influenced by anime and Japanese style art. I'm also very influenced by this illustrator called Danica Sills, and she has a YouTube channel, and honestly she's a big inspiration for me starting this YouTube channel, because if I remember correctly, her first video is basically explaining that she was trying to motivate herself to do more art, and I was like, hey, that's a good idea, I'm gonna do that. So that's to say, this is not an original idea on my part, and I was very, very, very influenced by Danica Sills. And I'll have a link to her YouTube channel on my description box below. So I guess that kind of brings us into part 2 of the topics I plan to discuss. The line art's very straightforward, so let's kind of talk about character design and inspiration, getting started, that sort of thing. For me, my characters mostly start with sketches or an idea. So I'm either doodling and I'm like, hey, this is a good doodle and I enjoy this, or I have like some sort of idea or concept inside my head. For the one I'm drawing now, I just was going at it. I was just randomly doodling and recording, and I was like, hey, this ended up not being so bad. I'm gonna turn this into an actual character instead of abandoning it and never picking it up again, which does happen. But when I actually plan out a character, I guess I think of elements I for sure want to include. So I have this sea goddess that I've done a couple times in a couple different ways over the past few years, and first, she was just a doodle, but I knew I wanted her to be some sort of ocean goddess. And I kind of wanted a Studio Ghibli type feel, where she's ginormous, and then there's little sea creatures or whatever in her hair. And then I decided to add a little lighthouse to her shoulder to be like, oh hey, she's like the ocean and the edge of the water or whatever. It wasn't super well thought out. I wasn't entirely sure why I added a lighthouse other than I thought it looked cool, which, you know, sometimes you just gotta do. But in the next few iterations of her, I refined that idea. And the first time I did it, I had actually put some little scraps and stuff in her hair, some tires or some soda bottle rings, because I wanted her to be kind of like sad and crying. And I added this black tear that was supposed to represent an oil spill, and you know, it was pretty cute and it looked nice, but I wasn't completely happy with it. And my latest iteration and most of the iterations after that do not have the oil spill or the little floating trash and stuff like that. Another example of a character design based on a concept was I recently drew this goddess character, and I know I wanted to do another goddess character, and instead of a thing or a place, I wanted her to be based on a concept. So she was based on Death, and I call her Lady Death, and I haven't finished her. She's still only a pencil sketch. I plan on scanning her into my computer as a digital file and doing the line art digitally, and from there putting her on some watercolor paper and doing another watercolor version of her, because I want a whole series of these goddesses with watercolor as the medium. Beyond focusing on character design based on a concept or wanting to include certain elements, I do a lot of fan art, and doing fan art is a good way to figure out your style, but not only that, get experience in drawing characters. And it doesn't have to be fan art of anime or a TV show or a TV series. You can also do fan art of other artists' characters, though I would caution against doing fan art and sharing it if you do not have the original artist's permission and or specifically say that this character belongs to this artist. Personally, I love getting random photos from people or seeing them that are based on characters I designed. In general, I just mainly ask that you credit me or you have a link back to my channel or my Instagram or whatever, but I enjoy seeing those sorts of things. Other ways you could get inspiration is to do art challenges. So things like Inktober, Drawtober, even in certain circles, certain artists will have a challenge of the week or challenge of the month or challenge even daily that you can follow along and try to improve your art skills from. And that's not just drawing skills, it's also your ability as an artist to create and come up with original ideas. Not that there's anything wrong with doing fan art and that sort of stuff, because, like, obviously I've done tons of that. As long as you are drawing and evolving your skills, I think you're probably doing something right. Another way I've gotten inspiration in the past is to do those character generators. So online you can find character generators and they'll give you some different characteristics of whatever you're going to do, so you can add or subtract some of the traits that you'll be wanting to include. A low-tech way of doing this is to get a bunch of traits you may or may not want to include and number them through 6 or even 20 if you have a d20, and then roll the dice for each one and be like, okay, well, I'm going to make a elf with spiky hair and a sword and wings, because why not? And then you take all of those items or traits and you design your character based on the description that you rolled, whether you did it by the dice or whether you did it with some sort of online program. For me, I guess the most common way is the way where I just doodle until I find something that I want to do and looks cool. Or I do a combination of doodling and having a idea or concept in mind, and I just do very vague gesture sketches until I come up with like a form that I like, and then I continue to refine that, as you have probably seen in the last video. So if you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out. It should be linked at the end card. If not, I have it in the same playlist as this playlist, which is my speed paint playlist. Another way to get inspired or learn how to do your own character design is just by watching videos like this and seeing how other people do it, hearing their ideas, or even if you don't want to be listening to the audio, just watching the speed paint and seeing how that character gets created is super beneficial. So for a moment, going back to talking about the line art, I'm just gonna say that one of the best things you can do is go slow and take your time to get the details right. At least for me, that is very important. I rushed this line art just a little bit. I'm not completely satisfied with it, so I may go back and edit it a little bit more before I upload the coloring video that I'll be doing with this same character. And I say go slow, and I'm saying that now because this video is sped up by 510%, so it took an hour and you're watching it in like, what, 13 minutes? So that's just to show you that art takes time, you gotta be patient, you gotta stick with it, you gotta just take your time and you'll get a result that hopefully you're satisfied with, or that at least helps you progress and figure out things that you want to do going forward and that you don't want to do anymore. My moment for this is finding certain brushes that I had never tried before and did not like, or had never tried before and did like the fine liner brush. Another thing I want to touch on real quick is how I get the like super smooth or whatever lines. It's mostly a stabilizer, but when I'm doing it traditionally, it's just being confident with your strokes, which takes some time to master, I admit, and sometimes I still mess up. And then also going in without being super jittery. So if you have coffee, sometimes you're jittery, or if you've not eaten in a while, you can be shaking. So just kind of paying attention to your own body and taking care of yourself so that doesn't affect your art, even when there's tons of outside factors that you can't control that may be affecting you. For example, people constantly bumping your table. With digital art, that just means Control-Z, but with traditional art, that means sometimes you've messed up your entire drawing, so don't draw with other people at the table. Or don't draw at your desk at school if you're still in a school situation. And I'm probably gonna sound like a broken record right now, but practice, 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 practice. Everyone says it. Everyone's like, draw every day. I know that's not feasible for a lot of people, myself included, but you know, you can't get better if you're not practicing. And I think that's gonna wrap it up for my talk today and character design and inspiration. So if you guys have any more questions or thoughts or any topics you want me to cover, go ahead and leave me a comment or even send me a message on Instagram. I'll have all of my social media linked in the description box below, including my Twitch and Instagram. I might be starting a Twitter soon, so look out for that. Your kind comments are super appreciated, as well as your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for stopping by.